Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Hidayah. My group member is Muhammad Muklis, Nur Shakira and Nur Izzati. We are from group 15. Today we will like to present about SDG 15, Life on Land. Okay, I will start this presentation with what is life on land. Okay, a flourished life on land is the foundation for our life in this planet. As you know, we are all the part of this planet ecosystem, and we also cause several damage through deforestation, loss of natural habitat, and land degradation. As we know, life on land is extraordinary because our forests are home to more 80% of land based on a species. Based on the species, and our remarkable ecosystem allow us all to eat, breathe, and live. But through the deforestation, global warming, we are slowly killing our earth and its habitat. Before it become more worse, we were to reminding ourselves that we can feed it. Present about what is SDG 15 goal. Okay, SDG 15 goal is to protect, restore and promote sustainably use of terrestrial ecosystem, sustainable manage forests, combat desertification, help and reverse land degradation, and help biodiversity loss. And after that, SDG 15 also about working together to protect, restore and promote our planet, plants and animals. Just by focusing on the change we can make now to have our future, we can sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, reverse land degradation, and put a stop to a biodiversity loss. Present about SDG 15 target. Okay, first is to conserve and restore terrestrial and freshwater ecosystem. Their service in particular forest, wetland, mountain and dry land in line with obligation under the international agreement. And second is to end deforestation and restore degraded forests, such as promote the implementation of sustainable management and to all of type of forests. And after that is to end desertification and restore degraded land, such as restore degraded land and soil, including land affected by the desertification and flood, and strive to achieve a land degradation and in neutral world. Number 4 is to ensure conservation of mountain ecosystem, such as ensure the conservation of the mountain ecosystem, including their biodiversity, in the order to enhance the capacity of to provide benefit that are essential for sustainable development. 5 is to protect biodiversity and natural habitat. It take urgent and significant action to reduce and the degradation of natural habitats, to protect and extinct and threatened species. Target number 6 is to promote access to genetic resource and fair sharing of benefit, just by arising from the utilization of genetic resource and promote the appropriate access to such a resource and internationally agree. And 7 is to eliminate poaching and trafficking of the protected species, just by taking urgent action to end the poaching and trafficking of the protected species of flora and fauna, and address both demand and supply of illegal wildlife product. Target number 8 is to prevent invasive alien species on land and in a water ecosystem, such as introduce measure to prevent the introduction and signification, reduce the impact of invasive alien species on land and a water ecosystem, and control or eradicate the priority species. And number 9 is to integrate ecosystem and biodiversity in governmental planning, such as into a national and a local planning, development process, and poverty reduction strategic account. Its target is to increase the financial resource to conserve and sustainably use ecosystem and biodiversity. And after that is finance and initiative sustainable forest manage. And lastly, to combat global poaching and trafficking.
Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to Dr. Azila and my fellow friends. My name is Nur Izzati binti Muhammad Zulkifli and I will continue the presentation with explaining the relationship between life on land in Indonesia with tourism industry. Relationship between life on land with tourism industry is connecting biodiversity and tourism. Beautiful landscape, rich flora and fauna, and natural heritage sites among the main reasons why tourists visit a destination. Tourists are searching for recreation and peace in natural areas, but also for fun activities. They would like to enjoy nice sceneries, watch wildlife, and actively experience nature on hiking, biking, and canoe tours. Areas with high biodiversity such as coastal zone, mountains and protected areas are especially attractive for guests. Tourism and biodiversity can be a symbiotic relationship. Also, biodiversity is the core of attractive landscape and creates distinctive regional features, including agricultural products for a diverse and local cuisine. Sustainable tourism can play a major role not only in conserving and preserving biodiversity but also in respecting terrestrial ecosystem, which is owing to its effort towards the reduction of waste and consumption, the conservation of native flora and fauna, and its awareness-raising activities. As the World Tourism Organization emphasized with regard to SDG 15. The Convention of Biological Diversity also stresses the importance of sustainable tourism development for biological diversity. It has issued guidelines for the tourism industry focusing on tourism development in areas in order to maximize the positive benefits for biodiversity, ecosystem and economic and social development. Next, I will continue to explain the major challenges that Indonesia face towards life on land. The first challenges are deforestation. Indonesian forest resources and forest ecosystem are threatened by deforestation, fragmentation and forest conversion. Deforestation increased dramatically in the beginning of the 1970s when large-scale commercial logging began. Since then, annual deforestation rates have increased from 1 million in the 1980s to 1.7 million in the 1990s to 2 million since 1996. These high rates in the 1950s to 119.7 million in 1985 and 100 million in 1997 to only 98 million in the 20s. About half of the remaining Indonesian forest has been fragmented by new networks of roads and other human land use activities such as development of plantations, tree crops and settlements. Recently, there has been an effort to design more comprehensive spatial plans for each province in Indonesia. It involves multidisciplines and stakeholders and will be used as the only reference for the development in the fields. The second challenges are shortage of taxonomies. Taxonomy can help in managing and utilizing Indonesia's natural resources and should be supported by other disciplines including morphology, genetics, anatomy, histology, physiology, biochemistry and ecology. Because of the very large numbers involved, Intelligent sampling system would need to be devised for obtaining a picture of the total diversity present in the nation. In addition, a very few species of organisms in Indonesia have been evaluated for human use. Thus, from around 38,000 plant species recorded in Indonesia, only about 6,000 have been considered in this respect. 1,000 animal species and 100 microbe species have been included in such surveys. The Research Centre for Biology of the Indonesian Institute of Science is the main institution where most of the taxonomists work. Universities could logically be developed as another resource to develop knowledge and increase the number of taxonomists in Indonesia, but only undertaking a major inventory effort in the country will increase the number of positions available for such workers once they are trained. International cooperation in the area of taxonomic inventory is also of prime importance, since no nation can within its own population support a sufficient number of experts to deal with the very large number of different groups of organisms that exist, many of them poorly known and with few specialists available even globally. The third challenges are forest fires. Forest fires are another cause of the depletion and degradation of forest ecosystem, and in recent decades have increased in frequency and intensity due to increasing droughts and the conversion and degradation of forest habitats that leave them vulnerable to fires. In 1997 to 1998, forest and land fires burned no less than 9.75 million of forests in the 5 major islands of Indonesia. In Kalimantan and Sumatra, 3.1 million of lowland forests and 1.45 million of peat swamp forests were damaged by fire. Forest depletion and degradation threaten the integrity of forest ecosystem and the wildlife that live in them. In 2008, the Indonesian National Board for Disaster Management was established and forest fire is included in its strategy. Last but not least, the fourth challenges are overexploitation. Overexploitation is also threatening Indonesia's biodiversity as people increasingly obtain products that are made at the expense of natural forest habitats. This could be driven by high market demand, poor law enforcement, and poor awareness in local communities towards biodiversity laws, as well as an increase in human population. High rates of logging have threatened the survival of many members of economically important forest trees, while overfishing has drastically reduced population of certain marine fish and prawn species. Overexploitation has also threatened some critically endangered bird species, such as the sulfur-crested cockatoo, which had only 8 individuals left on Masalembo Island in 2009, and the Bali starling, which currently persists only because of individuals reintroduced to its natural habitat in Bali Barat National Park. Overexploitation is associated with greediness that seeks only short-term benefit. All individuals have values, attitudes, motivations, and judgment, and these are often based in and sanctified by religious belief. In recent years, there has been an increased emphasis on using religious principles as a basis for biological conservation. Most religions emphasize the need to protect creation, and many recognize sacred natural sites and religious-based systems that protect biodiversity in these and other areas. Many sacred natural sites studied in various ethnic groups in Indonesia effectively protect diversity. I think that's all from my part. I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
So the next slide I will present. My name is Nur Shakira binti Abdul Halim and my matric number 271339. In my part, I will present to you about impact of SDG 15 towards tourism industry in Indonesia. There are three impacts that I have found which is haze, Indonesian push to become a tourist paradise line, land right, and number 3, endangered species toward flora and fauna. First of all, about haze. Haze is usually caused by open burning and liberation, factory, fumes, as well as vehicle uncontrollable. In 2019, Asian the Southeast is experiencing a haze crisis due to illegal burning in island of Sumatra, Kalimantan, in Indonesia. There are several effects of haze that have been identified, among them closely related to the impact on humans, animals, plants, nature, and around the country. Among them, many foreigner tourists who book holiday package to Indonesia reportedly cancelled their plan due to forest fire in Kalimantan and Riau. Head of the Indonesian Ministry of Tourism Crisis Center, Guntur Sakti, told in a newspaper that many foreigner tourists from Malaysia and Singapore cancelled plan to visit the island because the forest fire were still going on at that time. The forest fire also lead the regional administration to temporarily close the affected tourist attraction. So in this issue, we keep telling why Indonesian and why do forests in Indonesia keep burning. So almost every year, a smoky haze blanket the Southeast Asian region, signaling the return of forest fires in Indonesia. So for many in this region, grey skies and lingering acrid smell are not unfamiliar, but 2019 has already brought with it some of the worst haze level in a year. But what caused this fire, and why do Indonesian forests burn each a year? So in this case, we keep telling why and what make the forest in Indonesia keep burning, and it also can make the haze into the highest level. According to Indonesian National Disaster Agency, there are 328,724 hectares of land burned this year from January to August alone. Among them were affected regions were Central, West and Southern Kalimantan, Riau, Jambi and Southern Sumatra. So, but Indonesia not the only culprit. There have also been cases of open burning in neighbour Malaysia. Two in pales in comparison to Indonesia. As of 14 September, there were 10 hotspots in the Malaysian state of Sabah and Sarawak compared to 627 in Kalimantan, according to the Asian Specialized Meteorology Center. So, the burning is usually peak from July to October during Indonesian dry season. So many farmers take advantage of the condition to clear vegetation for palm oil, pulp and paper plantation using the clash and burn method. So they often spin out of control and spread into protected forest areas. So the problem has accelerated in recent year as more land has been cleared for expanding plantation for the curative palm oil trade. The burnt land also become drier which make it more likely to catch fire the next time there are clash and burn clearing. And why is it an issue for tourism, and why is related to SDG 15? So the haze usually measured 100 of kilometer across. It has spread to Malaysia, Singapore and the southern of Thailand and the Philippines, causing a significant deterioration in air quality. In Malaysia, 100 of schools have been forced to close after the haze reached a very unhealthy level of 208 on the Air Polluted Index API in several districts. On 14 September, Pollutant Standard Index PSI level in Singapore went beyond the 100 mark for the first time in 3 years, through it yet to reach the hazardous level of 2015. So in this case, haze is very impact to tourism industry too. It's not only for school, but it also give a big impact to tourism industry. When haze come and when haze coming, at that time tourism industry become drop, and the number of tourists come to Indonesia or some of places that affected by the haze also dropped and decreased. They also cancel all their plan to go to holiday and start to stay at home because the haze too heavy and the KPI of haze higher. So, second impact of SDG 15 towards tourism industry in Indonesia is Indonesia push to become a tourism paradise sideline land right. So, as you guys can see in this slide, first point is Indonesian bid to develop new tourism hotspot beyond Bali has given rise to several conflicts with local communities over land right. Second, activities that warn the situation is likely to get worse as the government prioritize investment and development over the land right of local. And beside, another issue are communities in places such as Sumatra Lake, Toba and the island gateway of Bali and Lombok have been forcibly displaced for tourist development project in which they had little or no say. And last, the number of land conflict in general and related criminal prosecutions of farmers, indigenous people and activists has risen sharply under President Joko Widodo compared to his predecessor. So, in this case, the Indonesian government tried to take new places and land to build new tourism infrastructure, but it not angry and accepted by local people because it take local people land right. President Joko Widodo focus on building tourism hotspot has created an increasingly hostile environment for indigenous communities and land right activists in projects across the country in 2018. But there were 83 recorded land conflict triggered as a direct result of infrastructure project across the country in 2019. According to the report from the NGO Consortium for Agrarian Reform or KPA, that figure is more than 5 times the 16 land conflict linked to infrastructure project recorded in 2018. KPA Secretary General Dewi Kartika attribute this drastic increase to the government intensified push to build infrastructure as part of the UNWTO administration wider economic development program. So, the last impact of SDG 15 towards tourism industry in Indonesia is the ecosystem become damaged so that the balance of nature is disturbed. Second, the decrease in biodiversity which result in resources. Third, the balance of nature is distributed, causing the potential of natural disaster. And last, damage to flora has been great influence on air condition. As we know, Indonesia is a country that have many type of forests, such as rainforest, for example. And Indonesian rainforests are home to some of the highest level of biological diversity in the world. Many sources credit Indonesia as the most species-rich country on earth. Spread over 18,000 islands, Indonesia contains the world's third largest area of rainforest after the Amazon and Africa Congo basin. Tragically, the rapid loss of Indonesian biologically wealthy rainforest is driving innumerable species to the very edge of survival. Many of Indonesia's most iconic and well-known species are also its most endangered, with the instinct of the Balinese and Java tiger. The Sumatran tiger is the only surviving species of Indonesian tiger. Its wild population is believed to total less than 500 animals, with an estimated 150 breeding pairs. One of the most immediate threats to their survival come from the destruction of critical habitat by the pulp and paper industry as it convert high-value rainforest into monoculture pulp plantation.
Hi, my name is Muhammad Mukhlis bin Hassan. I will continue with other part, which is the solution, how Indonesia overcome with the haze. First thing first is Indonesia take to control the burning of peatland and the prohibition of open burning, which is the early steps in controlling and avoiding biomass burning, especially burning peatland, are necessary to overcome the haze problem that now occurs almost every year. Indonesia takes steps to control the burning of peatland, and the prohibition of open burning is necessary. For example, is Pangkalan Bun, Kalimantan Tengah, Indonesia, which is the most frequent area of large-scale forest fire, especially during the summer season in Indonesia. Enforcement by responsible parties is the main key issue that need to be strengthened, because policies and acts related to burning peatland and have been established in Indonesia, but weak enforcement causes the haze problem to worsen. Agricultural activity in peatland areas should be monitored with the latest techniques to monitor the process of open burning, especially in dry and hot season. We move to the next solution, which is use latest technology. The use of the latest technology can also be adapted and carry out effectively in reducing the impact of haze, such as cloud seeding and the process of quickly extinguishing fires to prevent the burning of widest area of forest and peatland. Among the techniques that can be carried out in forecasting and providing early warning for upcoming haze episode is to analyze data on visibility and moisture content in organic and field surface, better known as a drop coat. Next, we move to the other solution for Indonesia, the push to become a tourism paradise, sidelines lands rights, which is the first solution is legitimate right of the community. For example, the Safe Pulau Pari Coalition recently assessed the Indonesian Ombudsman, who affirmed that the land certificates and the right of the company to use the land needed to be checked because of malpractice and wrong procedures. The National Land Agency now has the power to revise the process and revoke the certificate, re-establishing the legitimate rights of the community. The government has the chance to prove its commitment, protect its people and the environment, and may include the case of Pulau Pari in the agrarian reform process, which is officially open in September 2018. And then the second step, which is the important step, is to make sure the some of these forest areas are protected and returned to indigenous peoples, not giving new permit for companies in the extractive industry. This is important if the government wants to resolve the numerous land conflicts that have played out across Indonesia between companies and communities. According to the Indonesian Forum for the Environment, the country's largest and oldest green group, the government should check whether any of the affected concessions are subject to conflicting claims, and if so, return them to the local and indigenous community laying claim to them. Okay, next we move to the last part of the solution, which is how Indonesia overcome with the tourism development that damage flora and fauna. The first thing first is Indonesia replanting or tree planting that utilize almost the same aspect as community forestry. However, it entirely focuses on replanting, a feature commonly known as reforestation. Reforestation is the restoration or replanting of forests that have been reduced by fire or felling. It requires an ongoing process and should not be viewed as a one-time thing. People, communities, and government, also organization, are all active actors. It's involved selecting and dedicating large tract of land, mainly to cultivating forests. For instance, in local communities and urban centers, it can be done around market areas, in game, wildlife reserve, or within city parks. Replanting, therefore, qualifies restorative measure of deforestation. And then the next step is complemented by laws and regulation. Due to the nature and extent of forest destruction, efforts to stop human activities can be complemented by laws and regulations at governmental and organization levels. As much as the Indonesian government increasingly become aware of deforestation consequences, some people focus more on the immediate economic gain at the expense of the long-term environmental damage. This attitude encourage uh, illegal logging for timber and other valuable resource like rubber and palm oil. Therefore, stopping deforestation and preserving natural vegetation demands rules, law, and regulation from organization and government to aid in enforcing forest preservation policies. Laws on timber, tourism development, farming, and land use, among other forest resources, must be advanced and enforced to limit deforestation. For the conclusion, the reason SDG 15 is so impactful to our environment is that it promotes conservation as well as biodiversity sustainably. These two facets support the health of an ecosystem, which is vital for providing food and water, as well as ecosystem service such as climate regulation and recreation. These ecosystem services are closely related to biodiversity and essential to the livelihoods and well-being of marginalized groups such as rural and indigenous communities. SDG 15 also has a huge impact on sustainable development, which relies on the prosperity of land or forest ecosystems. In general, 30% of the Earth's surface is covered by forests. All of these together are home to more than 80 of all the terrestrial species of animal and plants in the world. SDG 15 is vital to have its target met because protecting and restoring ecosystems as well as the biodiversity their support directly mitigates the effect of climate change and provide greater resilience in the face of increasing human pressure and increasing disaster in our world. That's all from me. Thank you.